To understand what happened to Tommy Cole, we have to travel back to the early autumn of 1982. The setting is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Tennessee. At the time, this was a pristine, sprawling wilderness where campsite doors were left unlocked and children wandered the hiking trails through the valleys until the sun dipped below the ridges. It was a place where parents believed the ultimate safety net was the collective watchful eye of the outdoor community. In 1982, the concept of stranger danger had not yet fully penetrated the American consciousness, let alone the minds of those visiting the national parks. The idea that a child could vanish from a familiar, well-traveled trail in broad daylight with no trace and no warning seemed like an impossibility, a nightmare reserved for faraway cities, not the peaceful avenues of the ancient forest. Tommy Cole was 12 years old. He was an active, responsible boy, described by those who knew him as dependable and bright. Like many young campers of that era, Tommy had a morning chore. Gathering firewood and fetching fresh spring water for his family's campsite was a rite of passage, a way to earn his keep, learn self-reliance, and take the first steps toward independence. Every Sunday morning, Tommy would rise before the sun, dress quietly so as not to wake his family, and head out into the cool morning air to prepare his daily chores. It was a routine he had performed dozens of times. But Sunday, September 5th, 1982, would be different. On that morning, the routine would shatter, and with it, the peaceful innocence of an entire community. The timeline of that morning is critical, etched into the minds of investigators and the Cole family for decades. At approximately 6 in the morning, Tommy's father, John Cole, woke up to the sound of his son preparing to leave. Tommy gathered his things, collected his wooden carrying frame, and stepped outside with his faithful companion, a small dachshund named Rusty. Tommy's father went back to sleep, expecting to see his son return in an hour or so, hungry for breakfast and ready for a day of hiking. Tommy walked down the main trail toward the Marquardt Spring Junction, pulling his wooden frame. The morning was quiet, the air crisp with the first hints of autumn. As Tommy prepared his water containers, other young campers were also beginning their morning routines in the surrounding loop. One of these boys, Mike Sells, would later become a key witness in the immediate timeline. Around 6:15 in the morning, Mike and Tommy met up briefly, as they often did, to talk and organize their gear. It was during this brief window that the first unsettling details began to emerge. Mike Sells would later recall that as they were working, a vehicle approached on the nearby fire access road. It was described as a blue and white two-tone Ford utility truck. The driver of the truck stopped and spoke to Tommy, asking for directions to a remote trailhead. According to Mike, the interaction felt off, but at 12 years old, the boys did not immediately perceive the danger. The truck pulled away, and the boys continued with their work. A short time later, Tommy walked ahead to begin gathering kindling along his specific path on Marquardt Trail. Mike Sells remained behind for a few moments to finish sorting his gear. It was a separation of only a few hundred yards, but it was in this brief gap of time and distance that Tommy Cole vanished. By 6:45 in the morning, the peaceful morning began to show signs of tension. John Cole awoke again and realized that Tommy had not returned. Around the same time, a neighboring camper walked over to the Cole campsite, asking if they knew why the morning water supply at the pump had been left half-filled. This was highly unusual for Tommy, who took great pride in his punctuality and helpfulness. John Cole felt a sudden, sharp pang of worry. He got dressed quickly, stepped onto the path, and began walking the trail, expecting to find Tommy caught up in looking at wildlife, or perhaps delayed by a dropped bundle of wood. Instead, John found a scene that froze him in his tracks. At the junction of the main trail and Marquardt path, sitting abandoned on the dirt, was Tommy's wooden carrying frame. Inside the frame, several firewood bundles were still neatly stacked, untouched. Tommy's water container was there, but Tommy was gone. Crucially, Tommy's small dog, Rusty, was wandering nearby, looking confused and anxious. The dog, which was fiercely loyal to Tommy and would normally never leave his side, was alone. There was no sign of a struggle, no discarded shoes, no torn clothing. Just an empty trail, an abandoned frame, a silent dog, and the chilling realization that Tommy had vanished into thin air. John Cole began frantically searching the immediate woods, calling out his son's name into the quiet Sunday morning. He knocked on the doors of nearby cabins and tents, waking campers and asking if anyone had seen his boy. No one had. Realizing that something was terribly wrong, John rushed to the ranger station and placed an emergency call to the local county sheriff. It was approximately 7 in the morning. In the hours that followed, the structural and institutional failures that would plague this investigation for decades began to unfold. When the park rangers and local police arrived, they did not treat the situation with the urgency that a modern investigation demands. In 1982, the standard operating procedure for many agencies regarding missing teenagers in vast parks was to assume they had run away or simply wandered off to avoid their parents. Despite the abandoned gear, the untouched wood, and the frantic insistence of Tommy's parents that he was not a runaway and knew the trails well, the responding officers shrugged. The prevailing belief among the authorities was that Tommy was simply a rebellious youth who had decided to escape his family, perhaps hitchhiking out of the park at a nearby highway crossing. The Park Service refused to issue an immediate search and rescue alert or launch a full-scale tracking operation, stating that they had to wait 72 hours before a child could officially be declared missing under suspicious circumstances. Those 72 hours were precious. They were the critical window when physical evidence was fresh, when tire tracks on the dirt road could be preserved, and when search dogs could easily follow a scent. Instead, those hours were wasted. The scene around the abandoned trail junction was not cordoned off. No forensic analysis was conducted on the wooden frame or the surrounding soil. Hikers, onlookers, and well-meaning volunteers walked through the area, inadvertently destroying any potential trace evidence or tracks that the abductor might have left behind. The head of the park ranger district at the time was Chief Ranger Orville Cooney. Chief Cooney's handling of the case became a major point of contention and deep bitterness for the Cole family. According to witnesses and family members, Chief Cooney was dismissive of the abduction theory from the very beginning. He reportedly insisted to reporters and volunteers that Tommy had run away, even going so far as to tell search parties to go home because they were wasting their time looking in the deep woods. The family felt completely abandoned by the very people sworn to protect them. Noreen Cole, Tommy's mother, would later state that the authorities treated them with suspicion, almost as if they were the ones who had done something wrong, rather than being the grieving parents of a stolen child. Frustrated by the lack of official action, John and Noreen Cole did what few parents of that era had ever had to do. They took the investigation into their own hands. They organized their own wilderness search parties, printing flyers with Tommy's face and distributing them across state lines and park visitor centers. They contacted local media, begging for coverage. They refused to let their son's name be forgotten. It was through their relentless advocacy, alongside the parents of other missing children, that the national landscape regarding missing children in public lands began to change. The tragedy of Tommy Cole, along with other high-profile disappearances in the wilderness, became the catalyst for a national awakening. In 1984, the legislature passed what became known as the Tommy Cole Bill. This landmark legislation mandated that law enforcement and federal park authorities must immediately begin an active investigation whenever a child is reported missing on public lands and foul play is suspected, completely doing away with the arbitrary 72-hour waiting period. Furthermore, the Coles helped establish new search protocols and registries for missing children. Tommy's face became one of the first to be printed on park safety brochures and informational maps across the country, a haunting image that brought the reality of child abduction into millions of family vacations. But while these systemic changes would save countless children in the years to come, they did nothing to bring Tommy home. The case grew colder with each passing month. The police had no suspects, no solid leads, and no clear motive. The blue and white truck that Mike Sells had seen on the fire road was never found. The man who had asked for directions seemed to have vanished into the same thin air that claimed Tommy. Then, almost 2 years to the day after Tommy disappeared, the nightmare returned to the region. On August 12, 1984, 13-year-old Eugene Martin was gathering kindling near a campsite in a neighboring state park. It was an early Sunday morning, almost identical to the morning Tommy had vanished. Eugene set out on his task, but he never returned. His abandoned canvas gathering bag was found on the ground, with several pieces of wood still inside. Witnesses would later report seeing Eugene talking to an unidentified man near a dirt access road shortly before he disappeared. The similarities between the two cases were staggering. Both boys were performing campsite chores. Both were of similar age, build, and appearance. Both vanished on a Sunday morning while performing routine outdoor tasks, leaving their equipment behind. Yet, astonishingly, law enforcement from both jurisdictions publicly stated that they could find no connection between the two disappearances. They treated them as separate, unrelated incidents. To the public and to the Cole family, this stance seemed not only improbable, but highly suspicious. How could two young boys vanish under near-identical circumstances in the same park system within 2 years, and yet have no connection? Noreen Cole began to suspect that something far more sinister than a pair of isolated abductions was occurring in the region. She began working with private investigators, digging into the backgrounds of seasonal park employees and looking for patterns. Chilling details began to surface. It was discovered that several individuals associated with the park maintenance and seasonal trail crews had histories of child exploitation. A former maintenance supervisor was arrested and found to have a list of young campers' names, and another employee later admitted to targeting children on remote trails. Despite these disturbing revelations, the official investigation remained stagnant. The police seemed unwilling or unable to pull on the threads that the family's private investigators were uncovering. It was during this period of frustration and despair that the narrative of the Tommy Cole case took a turn into the dark and controversial realm of conspiracy and high-level cover-ups. In the late 80s and early 90s, a man named Paul Bonacci came forward with a story that would shock the nation. Bonacci was an inmate in a neighboring state prison, serving time for an unrelated crime. He claimed that he had been a victim of a massive, highly organized child trafficking ring that operated out of isolated wilderness camps and underground structures, extending into the highest echelons of regional authority. This ring, which became known in alternative media as a shadowy wilderness syndicate, allegedly kidnapped children from remote state and federal parks to be trafficked through hidden networks. More shocking still, Bonacci claimed that he was directly involved in the abduction of Tommy Cole. He stated that on September 5, 1982, he had been forced by his captors to travel to the Great Smoky Mountains. He claimed they drove a blue and white vehicle, matching the description of the utility truck seen by Mike Sells on the fire road. Bonacci alleged that he was the one who approached Tommy on the trail to ask for directions, acting as a distraction, while another man grabbed Tommy from behind, pressed a chemical-soaked rag to his face, and threw him into the back of the vehicle before speeding down the fire road. Bonacci's claims were met with intense skepticism by mainstream media and law enforcement. Many dismissed him as a pathological liar, a convict looking for attention, or a lighter sentence. They pointed out inconsistencies in his timeline and argued that his story was too fantastical to be believed. However, Noreen Cole found herself listening to Bonacci's accounts. When she interviewed him, she found that he knew specific details about Tommy that had never been released to the public, including the location of certain birthmarks on Tommy's body and specific personal items Tommy had been carrying in his pockets that morning. The debate over Bonacci's credibility reached a climax in a civil court. John Cole, Tommy's father, filed a civil lawsuit against Bonacci, seeking to legally establish his involvement in the kidnapping. In a stunning turn of events, a federal judge ruled in favor of the Cole family, awarding them a multi-million-dollar judgment against Bonacci. While this was a civil ruling and did not carry criminal charges, it was seen by some as a legal acknowledgement that Bonacci's testimony carried weight. Yet criminal prosecutors refused to act on Bonacci's claims, and no charges were ever filed against the other individuals he named as part of the alleged wilderness ring. For years, the case hung in a tense, unresolved limbo. The public was divided. Some believed Tommy had been the victim of a local predator or had suffered a tragic, unrecoverable accident in the wilderness, and that the conspiracy theories were the tragic result of a mother's grief-driven search for answers. Others believed that there was indeed a massive cover-up, that powerful forces were protecting those who had taken Tommy and Eugene Martin from the public parks. Then came the night of March 1997. According to Noreen Cole, she was asleep in her home near the edge of the park when she was awakened at approximately 2:30 in the morning by a quiet knock on her door. It was a knock that she had dreamed of for 15 years. When she opened the door, she saw two men standing on the porch. One was an older, unidentified man who stood silently in the background, acting as a sort of guard or escort. The other was a young man in his late 20s. Noreen claims that as she looked at the young man, she recognized the eyes. She knew immediately, with a mother's certainty, that this was Tommy. The young man stepped inside, and for the next hour and a half, he spoke to Noreen. He did not hug her, and he remained physically distant, but he spoke with a quiet, intense urgency. According to Noreen, Tommy confirmed that he had been abducted by a highly organized network operating out of remote, hidden locations, just as Paul Bonacci had claimed. He told her that he had been subjected to horrific abuse, conditioned, and forced to live a double life. He explained that he had eventually managed to escape the network, but that he could never return to his normal life. He was living under an assumed identity, constantly on the run and in fear for his life. Tommy allegedly told his mother that he had come to see her one last time, to let her know that he was alive, but to warn her that she must stop her public crusade for her own safety. He told her that the people who had taken him were incredibly powerful and that the police would never help her because some of them were complicit. After 90 minutes, the young man stood up, looked at his mother, and slipped back out into the night, accompanied by the silent guard. He has not been seen by his family since. This midnight visit is perhaps the most controversial aspect of the entire Tommy Cole saga. Critics, including Tommy's father, John Cole, who was divorced from Noreen by that time, have openly doubted that the visit ever occurred. John has publicly stated that he believes Noreen may have been victimized by an imposter, or that the trauma of the loss had caused her to believe in a visitation that was not real. Law enforcement dismissed the story entirely, pointing out that there was no physical evidence to support the claim, no fingerprints, no photographs, no DNA. But Noreen Cole has never wavered. She insists, with absolute conviction, that her son sat in her living room that night. For her, the visit was both a profound relief and a terrible burden. It confirmed that her son was alive, but it also painted a picture of a life of ongoing terror and isolation from which she could not rescue him. The mystery deepened further in 2006. Noreen reported that she had found a set of bizarre, disturbing photographs left on her doorstep. The photographs depicted several young boys bound and gagged in what appeared to be a rustic cabin or subterranean enclosure. Some of the boys in the photographs were later identified as victims from an unrelated exploitation case in another state. But one of the boys was never identified. Noreen insists this day that the unidentified boy in those photographs is Tommy. She believes the photos were left as a warning, a reminder from the forces that took her son that they were still watching, still in control. The case of Tommy Cole remains officially open, a cold case that refuses to die. It is a story that exists in the liminal space between verifiable, tragic facts and deeply unsettling allegations. What we do know is that on a quiet morning in 1982, a 12-year-old boy set out to do his morning chores on a national park trail and never came home. We know that the system failed him and his family in those crucial first 72 hours. We know that another boy, Eugene Martin, vanished under almost identical circumstances 2 years later, and that no one was ever held accountable. What remains unclear is the true scope of the horror. Was Tommy the victim of a lone, opportunistic predator, or perhaps a tragic victim of the unforgiving wilderness? A statistic from an era that did not know how to protect its children on public lands? Or was he caught in the web of something far larger? A shadow network that reached into places that the law could not touch. For over 40 years, the deep forests of the Great Smoky Mountains have held their secrets. The wooden carrying frame has long been stored away, but the questions remain. They linger in the quiet hours before dawn, when the young campers of a bygone era used to walk the trails alone. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Tommy Cole or Eugene Martin, we urge you to contact the authorities. No detail is too small, even after all these years. Please share this video to keep Tommy's memory alive. Sometimes, in the face of silence, the only protection we have is our collective memory and our refusal to stop asking questions. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, but please keep them respectful of the families who still live with this pain every day. Our hearts go out to the Cole family, and we hope that one day the full truth will finally be revealed. We will continue reporting the facts as we know them, and we will keep asking questions. Be good to yourselves and to each other. Hug your kids tight. I'm your host, and I'll see you a little farther down the trail.